In a land where hope fights to breathe, Gaza's children count their days not in years but in alarms. Over 52,000 souls lost. The echoes of bombs and shadows of destroyed homes tell stories of suffering that transcends borders and demands the world's attention. As the International Court of Justice prepares to weigh accusations of genocide against Israel, the eyes of the world are fixed on The Hague. Will this trial mark a turning point for international justice and accountability, or will it become another chapter in a long history of unresolved grievances? Can the International Court of Justice ruling truly compel an end to the suffering and bring about a lasting change? These are questions that we're going to ask here on In Depth. I'm Morsi. Welcome. The latest developments highlight the deepening humanitarian crisis in Gaza as Israel's blockade continues to choke the flow of vital aid and supplies. Arab News stated that the United Nations and humanitarian agencies warn that the situation has reached catastrophic levels, with food, medicine, and basic necessities running out. The international community is under pressure, growing pressure, to intervene as the International Court of Justice hearings intensify scrutiny on Israel's actions and the broader implications of international law. Calls for accountability and urgent relief are mounting. The world watching to see if legal action will translate into real-world change for Gaza's besieged population. Israel faces mounting legal pressures as the United Nations top court debates over its ongoing blockade of the UNRWA and broader restrictions on humanitarian access to Gaza. According to The Guardian, the International Court of Justice is hearing arguments that Israel's actions violate its obligations under international law, especially concerning the rights of civilians in conflict zones. Humanitarian agencies argue that the blockade is causing immense suffering and may constitute a breach of the Genocide Convention. The court deliberations are closely followed as their outcome could set a significant precedent of enforcement of humanitarian law and the accountability of states in future conflicts. As the world awaits the International Court of Justice's decision, we turn to our guests for deeper insights. We are joined by Munir Naseba, a professor of international law from the occupied Jerusalem, and Dr. Ameni Suleiman, a director of Mediterranean Studies Institute at Alexandria University from Cairo, joining us to discuss the legal and political ramifications of this trial. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Let's start off with Professor Naseba. Can you explain to us the legal mechanism that could end this cycle of violence? The ICJ's involvement signal a turning point, even though it's not. It's more of an advisory sort of panel.
Well, the advisory opinion that will be later on issued by the International Court of Justice as a result of the current proceedings is certainly important, but we cannot wait for this specific proceeding to end the Israeli violence in the occupied Palestinian territory and to force Israel by its own to allow humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. The issue is that whatever decision that will be taken by the International Court of Justice in its current advisory opinion must be followed up on by states, member states in the United Nations. The fact that Israel is violating international law in so many different ways, and we remember that that the court has already issued two advisory opinions regarding Palestine. One regarding the wall that Israel has built in the occupied Palestinian territory in the West Bank, and the second one about the legality of the whole occupation, where in July 2024, the International Court of Justice pronounced that the Israeli occupation in the occupied Palestinian territory is illegal. What we need after that and after the current proceeding is a follow-up by the member states of the United Nations. If Israel is not respecting the United Nations humanitarian work in the occupied Palestinian territory, which is now very much needed by the population of the Gaza Strip, while there is a genocide going on and while Israel is starving the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip and using this starvation as a method of war and as a weapon of war, the international community must, following this advisory opinion, take serious measures in order to force Israel to allow humanitarian aid into Palestine, to allow the UNRWA to continue working, and to end the Israeli occupation in the occupied Palestinian territory. So while the court will give us the legal cover of what the Israeli violations actually mean, the only way to enforce international law is through political forums such as the UN Assembly, the UN Security Council, as well as other, regional organizations, the Arab League, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the African Union, etc. So these are the bodies that will actually be able to put this advisory opinion as well as other decisions of the court into practice.
Okay, Professor Silman, you heard Professor Nasriba talking about the idea of, even though it's an advisory opinion, it's up to the political bodies to sort of applicate whatever comes out, whatever decision comes out. From a political perspective, what does this trial mean for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Even if the decision is, that yes, they are violating, international law, will something come out of this advisory opinion, politically speaking?
Well, this time the focus is on how Israel is blocking international aid to Gaza for more than 50 days. Beforehand, and with maybe the South Africa case against Israel, it was more about the genocidal acts, whether this is a war of a genocidal war against the Palestinian people. It should be done through a lot of investigation and a lot of fact-finding committees on the ground. This time, we are talking about something that Israel didn't deny, which is not fulfilling its obligation. Even an occupying country should have to fulfill its obligations against those it is occupying. The least thing to do is to let the humanitarian aid in. Even if claiming that the UNRWA, some of the workers of UNRWA are Hamas members or whatever Israel is saying, it's not just UNRWA that can do the humanitarian act. Hence, this trial this time is putting Israel in front of the international community that even if people are questioning whether it's a genocidal war or not, no one can question that Israel, with their own words, announcing that they are not letting the humanitarian aid into Gaza for more than 50 days, taking an advantage of some of the UNRWA incidents or whatever is not an excuse to starve 2.3 million people, target the ambulances, and hitting even the international workers and the medical workers. This is what this tribunal is trying to tell the world, that whatever the reason of the war, whatever happened on the 7th of October that they claim that everything started with, this is not true. The fact is Israel now is starving the Palestinians to death, it's blocking humanitarian aid to Gaza. Whether you are in war or not, this is not an act that could be justified even for an occupying force.
Professor Nasiba, as you heard that Professor Suleiman talked about the idea of what the tribunal is going to discuss. They're basically going to discuss two main things: the humanitarian aid, basically discussing the obligations of the occupying force on those being occupied, in addition to a possibility of active genocide being committed. In legal terms, how can the court determine what constitutes, I suppose, a genocide, and what are the obligations of the occupying force?
Regarding the genocide itself, the International Court of Justice, as explained by Dr. Amani Sulaiman, it has already issued provisional measures with the South Africa case, and it has already ordered Israel to allow humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. The current case before the International Court of Justice has a relatively different angle as well. Israel has taken the decision to stop the work of the UNRWA specifically in the occupied Palestinian territory. Around more than a month ago, they decided to close forcibly the UNRWA headquarters in occupied Jerusalem, and they have decided to end the agreement between Israel, to terminate the agreement between Israel and the UNRWA in order to communicate, to facilitate the work of the UNRWA in the occupied Palestinian territory. Of course, it is needless to say that Israel has no sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territory. It cannot block any UN agency from working within the occupied Palestinian territory. The sovereignty in this territory is Palestinian, so it's only Palestine that has the right to allow or prevent any foreign entities from working within the occupied Palestinian territory, and Israel, as an occupying power, is expected only to allow and to facilitate this type of intervention. So this is part of the what's going.
Will they also be discussing the aid workers? Will they also be discussing the UN agency aid workers that have been killed during the conflict, and how this hinders humanitarian aid work, especially with international bodies like UNRWA and UN agencies in general?
Yes, but also Israel has been denying visas for the staff, the international staff of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to access the city of Ramallah, to access Palestine. They have been actually creating a lot of obstacles for not only the UNRWA, but other UN agencies and other UN mechanisms from working within the occupied Palestinian territory. Israel is not allowing any special rapporteur to enter the occupied Palestinian territory. It's not allowing the Commission of Inquiry that is investigating war crimes and crimes against humanity to enter the occupied Palestinian territory. They always meet with the victims, either in Jordan or in Egypt or in other countries, but not in Palestine. They are unable to do the documentation in Palestine as a result of the Israeli action against the United Nations. So basically, the reality is that Israel is looking at the United Nations as an enemy, and they actually decided to basically run or conduct a press conference instead of participating in these proceedings before the judges in the International Court of Justice, because they know that they will never win a real argument, a legal argument, and their only battlefield that they prefer to work in is media. So because there they can lie and nobody can necessarily make an authoritative decision about their lies. But the court is going to do that. It's going to establish what the Israeli obligations regarding the occupied Palestinian territories are. It will most probably recall its former advisory opinion regarding the legality of the occupation. It's going to recall that the whole occupation is illegal and has to be terminated as soon as possible. And of course, all the other measures that lead to humanitarian crises and lead to creating obstacles for the United Nations agencies from providing humanitarian aid or documenting human rights violations and war crimes are contrary to international law.
Okay, Dr. Amani, what about you? From your perspective as someone who's an expert in political science in general, again, the opinion that comes out of The Hague is going to be an advisory opinion. And we've seen, the Israeli side come out in defiance of The Hague and preemptively, where we've seen statements from someone like Gideon Sa'ar. How can this affect the ruling, and what does it mean for, the Israelis on the political stage?
Sa'ar mocked the tribunal that's speaking about it being a circus, and Israel never showed any kind of respect to hearings or proceedings, whether from the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court. They just act as if they don't care, and they know that at the end of the day, nothing is going to happen, because even with
Dr. Amani, I'm sorry, I just have to cut you off because we have to go live to The Hague in the Netherlands on the International Court of Justice hearings, and we're going to take a look at that and the ongoing case against the Israelis' occupation of Palestine.
Revenues. It fragments our territory. It severely restricts our movement and access. From the 18-year blockade over Gaza to the nearly 1,000 military checkpoints and obstacles to access and movement in the West Bank, to the attempts to sever East Jerusalem from its Palestinian environment. Israel systematically created our dependency on aid and then deliberately deprived us of this aid. Kill and displace, destroy to replace. Get rid of Palestinian demography to seize Palestinian geography. The methods are illegal and inhumane. The real objectives pursued are unlawful, and the means deployed are criminal. I'd like to repeat that. The methods are illegal and inhumane. The real objectives pursued are unlawful, and the means deployed are criminal. A UN member state openly shredding the UN Charter in the General Assembly, attacking the UN, killing UN personnel, bombing facilities, and inciting against the organization. That member state, its foreign minister today, wants you to put to trial the Secretary General of the UN and the Commissioner General of the UN, Mr. Lazzarini. You see how he is standing on his head instead of standing on his feet? A member state breaching resolutions of the Security Council and the General Assembly and the Human Rights Council, and smearing them for adopting these resolutions grounded in international law. A member state, a UN member state, attacking the principal judicial organ of the UN and mocking the most elementary and fundamental rules of our international law-based order. A UN member state openly aiming to destroy an entire UN agency, UNRWA, protesting its continued existence while it is Israel's expulsion of Palestinians and denial of the right of return of Palestine refugees that has led to the creation of this agency and required its continued existence for over 7 decades. UNRWA is the shining example of the success of multilateralism at the UN. It is a remarkable organization. This is what we should be proud of as an organization, in a selfless way, catering to the needs of 6 million Palestine refugees and giving almost 300 individuals in the process of providing humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian people in Gaza. It is something that all of us at the UN should be so proud of, that it has been in business for almost 75 years. It is an organization that should be protected, defended, not to be attacked. A UN member state openly destroying an entire people. Till when can this situation be tolerated? Till no Palestinian survives? Till no Palestinian child is spared? There is an alternative vision. One where the law is upheld, where no civilian is harmed, whether Palestinian or Israeli, where there are no prisoners and no hostages, no occupation and no wars, where families are reunited in life rather than death, where our people are finally free, and where two states live side by side in peace and security, where all recognize our shared humanity and that all peoples are endowed with rights and that every life is sacred. Every life of everyone from all peoples in the region and beyond is sacred. Not the life of some, and to deny the sacredness of the life of others. We are equal. We should be equal. We are all the children of God, and God does not discriminate among his children or against his children. Where you do not need to ask what is the nationality or religion or race of a child killed to know if you should be outraged or find excuses. Where parents do not live in fear. Where children do not discover death before they had a chance to experience life. That alternative vision is why humanity enacted rules and established courts to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. To bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice. Justice, not vengeance. Justice, not double standards. Justice, not cruelty. We are here because the General Assembly needs your guidance to advance justice. We are here as millions of Palestinians, in particular, 2 million plus in Gaza, half of them children, pay the ultimate price for our collective inability to end the injustice. Help us deliver justice. Help us to move in that direction and to have justice for the Palestinian people. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank the representatives of Palestine for their presentation. Before I invite the next delegation to take the floor, the court will observe a coffee break of 50 minutes. The hearing is suspended.
That was a Palestinian representative at the UN, Riyad Mansour, where he delivered a powerful statement before the ICJ to highlight the dire situation in Gaza. Mansour discussed many things, including international community's failure to respond to the critical and dire conditions in the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian people are facing when it comes to starvation and hunger being used as a weapon of war in Gaza. He condemned the justifications of the Israelis' aggressions and actions and pointed to the obstacles to developing projects aimed at improving the Palestinian lives. He urged the UN member states to act against Israeli violations, emphasizing the relentless aggression and the displacement of thousands of Palestinians with complete disregard to the international law. Stressed that it's time to end the suffering of Palestinians.